Hello YouTube. Today we are going to discuss an interesting problem which will help us understand about differentiation, how it works. Okay, this is particularly interesting because we are not going to discuss about one particular function like x square or e power x or log x or sin x or cos x like that. We are thinking about arbitrary functions, two arbitrary functions f of x and g of x. Okay, and another function h of x which is derived from f and g like this. Okay, h of x is equal to maximum of f of x and g of x. Okay, and we are going to discuss about the differentiability of h at x naught. Okay, so how are you going to approach this problem? We don't have any formula for f or g, so we don't have formula for h. How can we talk about the differentiability of h? Okay, and this is where you use some diagrams to help you understand to tackle this problem. Okay, let's think about it. Some diagram, you can it's a let's say let this be the point x naught because we are interested the differentiability of h at x naught. Okay, and it's only given that f and g are differentiable at x naught. We don't know about the differentiability of f or g at other values of x. Okay, we only know that f and g, both f and g are differentiable at x naught. Okay, let me name this as x naught. And let's think about it, some function. Okay, let f be like this, let this be f, and let this be g. Okay, and if we just look in this interval, okay, here h will take the values of f. In this interval, h will take the values of f, and till this interval, h will take the values of g because g is greater than f in this interval. Similarly, and so on. Okay, let me color it for better understanding. Okay, so h will choose f here, then g here. Okay, and once again f here because that's what maximum means. Okay, so here h will choose the value of f, here h will choose the values of g, and here h will choose the values of f again. And we are going to think about the differentiability of x naught. So we are going to think in general at what conditions we can assure that h will be differentiable at x naught. We are interested in the condition where h will be differentiable at x naught. Okay, is it possible for us to say can we say h is always differentiable at x naught? Can we say this? We have already seen that both f and g are differentiable at x naught, and can we say h will be always differentiable at x naught? That is the question here, and the answer is no. Let's see why it is no. I am going to just write some imaginary function. Okay, this is a general statement, which means it should be true for all the functions. I am going to say that f is a straight line which passes through x naught like this. Okay, and g is another straight line which passes to x naught like this, in this way. Okay. Let me name this f, g, and h will be this function. Right? H will be this function. Basically, this is a straight line. My drawing is not that good, but you can see this. Okay. The function g is decreasing with the to the left of x naught, and the function f is increasing to the right of x naught. Okay, so limit h tends to, what's it? This is positive, right? Yeah. To x naught positive. Okay, h of x plus h minus h of x divided by h is greater than 0. No, it is less than 0 because g is decreasing. Okay, it is less than 0, strictly less than 0. And similarly, limit h tends to x naught negative, which means we are thinking in this direction, h of x plus h minus h of x divided by h is strictly greater than 0. Okay, it's a strict positive number. Hence, these two limits are not equal, which means the derivative at x naught for h does not exist. So we cannot say that h will be always differentiable at x naught. Okay, so what is the thing that we observe? We observe that, so if this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis, both the values of g and f are actually equal and they are 0. Here we have g of x naught is equal to f of x naught is equal to 0, right? It doesn't matter. We can shift these two lines anywhere we want. Okay, for all the values, anywhere we want to match any values of this. This can be actually any real number. That's what I'm saying. You know, a simple example. This real number is 0. If you are thinking about, let's say, number 2, we can actually shift these two lines till here. We can make these two lines be equal at 2. Okay. So then g of x naught is equal to f of x naught. We have a problem. Okay. Whenever g of x naught is equal to f of x naught, I can construct a function, some function like this. I can construct two lines because this g and f can be any functions, and the lines are always differentiable. I can construct two lines such that they are equal at x naught. Any arbitrary line I can choose it, and I will show that the derivative actually does not exist for h at x naught. Okay, so h is not always differentiable at x naught. Okay. So here, if you should observe what I am doing here. Here I am doing a qualitative reasoning. Okay, I am not working with any quantities. I am not calculating any numbers. I am just using my reasoning. Okay, less than or greater than, less than 0 or greater than 0, increasing or decreasing. Okay, this kind of reasoning is called qualitative reasoning, and this should be encouraged. Okay, you should use it more to understand many theorems. Okay, this kind of reasoning will be very important to understand the proofs of many theorems. Okay, because always with theorems you are dealing with arbitrary functions or arbitrary numbers. You are not dealing with one particular function or one particular number. You are proving in general. So this kind of reasoning is very important there. So this is not true. Okay. In general, but what if f of x naught is not equal to g of x naught? Now can we say that h will be always differentiable at x naught? This is the question now. This is actually true, and let me show you how to prove it. Okay. So without loss of generality, we can assume that f of x naught is greater than g of x naught. Okay. You can use this same reasoning if g of x0 was less than f of x0. Because, and they, I mean, you will see the statement here. Without laws of generality, let's assume that f of x0 and g of x0. And if I prove that for this condition, if h is differentiable, then I have proved for everything. Okay, that's what it means actually. Without laws of generality means. Okay. Now, both f and g are differentiable at x0, which forces f and g to be continuous at x0. Okay, you can see look at that proof very easily. I'm not going to discuss that proof here. Okay, that's a very basic proof. If you look into the definition of continuity and differentiability at a particular point, you can easily conclude that both f and g are continuous at x0. You see here I'm using continuity to prove that to study about the differentiability. Okay, so this is how everything are interlinked. Okay, you should be thinking about that. Okay, now we have. Okay, let me erase this also. I need more space. Now we have f of x0 greater than g of x0. Okay, let's say x0 here. Okay, let this be f of x0 and this be g of x0, right, in the y-axis. Okay, it's actually 0 comma f of x0, this is 0 comma g of x0. I'm just writing for clarity. Okay, and the function might look something like this, so g can be something like this. G can be something like this. No, what am I doing? Try that dotted line. G can be something like this. Okay, at x0 it is equal to g of x0. Right? And f can be something like this. Okay, it can be anything. I'm just giving one visual interpretation. Okay. Okay, all right. So I'm choosing epsilon is equal to f of x0 minus g of x0 divided by 3. This number is greater than 0. Yes. It's greater than 0. I am going to think about this epsilon here. Okay, f of x0 plus epsilon, f of x0 minus epsilon. Similarly, this interval around g of x0 and f of x0. Okay, since this function both g f and g are continuous at x0, there exists some delta 1 comma delta 2 greater than 0. Okay, such that g of y yes, okay, such that g of y minus g of x0 is less than epsilon mod of g of y minus, and f of z minus f of x0 is less than epsilon. Okay, and what is the importance of delta 1 and delta 2? Mod of y minus delta 1 should be less than delta, y minus x0 should be less than delta 1, and mod of z minus x0 should be less than delta 2. Okay, what am I doing here? I am now thinking about a particular interval around x0. Okay, actually two intervals around x0. Okay, one interval for g and one more interval for f. Since G and F are continuous, okay, let's talk about G here. Since G is continuous, I should be able to find an interval such that all the values of G in that interval lies within this interval. What I mean? For every y I am going to choose within this interval. Okay, this is x0 plus delta 1 and this is x0 minus delta 1 similarly. For all the values of y I am going to choose within this interval, I am going to have the corresponding values of y within this interval. Okay? Within this interval. Similarly, I am going to choose the values of z within some interval delta 2 such that all the values of f will lie within this interval. This is actually true. This is actually the definition of continuity. If function f is continuous, for all values of epsilon, you should be able to find a corresponding delta such that this condition holds. For all values of epsilon, this condition holds. That's actually equivalent definition of continuity. One definition you have limit definition, and another definition you have epsilon delta definition. This is called the epsilon delta definition of continuity. Okay. I mean, how close you look into f of that function, the function value f of x naught, you should be able to find an interval close to x naught such that this interval is mapped into this interval. It is getting closer and closer. It is not you're not going to have any jumps. That's what it actually means. You should not have any jumps. Okay. Jumps is the mostly basic intuitive definition that you will see in the books. Okay, but this is an actual IIT JEE question, and you will see this kind of problems very common. This kind of problems are very common. Okay, so in order to do that, you should be familiar with the epsilon delta definition. So this epsilon delta definition is that for all epsilon greater than 0, you should be able to find one delta such that this condition holds. Okay, such that f of x minus f of x naught for all less than epsilon should imply, such that x minus x naught less than delta implies that f of x minus f of x naught should be less than epsilon. Okay? I'm just using corresponding variable. You are just finding one interval such that the mapping will be within close to this f of x naught. Okay, functional value, whatever. So these two conditions should be holding. So this delta 1 can be here and delta 2 can be here. Okay. And what is delta 2? Delta 2 we are defining for f. Okay. And for this you might not actually and f is only true for delta 2 and g is only true for delta 1. Okay, and g will not obey this law. Need not obey if are in the out of this interval. G obeys this law only within its interval. Okay, so we are going to take delta. We are going to take delta is equal to minimum of delta 1 comma delta 2. Okay, whatever the minimum we are going to take that. Okay, so in this case, let's say we have delta 1. So all the values of g will lie within this interval. All the values of f will lie within this interval. Right? So what is the maximum here? What is the maximum in this interval? F or g? Tell me, what is the maximum? The maximum is clearly f. So h is equal to f in the interval x0 plus delta. Okay. So h is equal to f in x0 minus delta comma x0 plus delta. Now the differentiability of h depends on the differentiability of f. In the previous example that we have seen, the differentiability of h depended both on f and g. Okay. Now the differentiability of h only depends on f, and f is clearly differentiable at x0. It is given. Hence you have h is differentiable at x naught. Okay, no matter what, if these two quantities are not, if f of x naught is not equal to g of x naught, and if you define h like this, you can always be sure that h is differentiable at x naught. Okay, because h is going to take any one of the value, either f or g, at some particular interval. Okay, at some particular interval around x naught, h is going to take only one function. It is not going to depend on two functions. Hence, you can be sure that h is differentiable at x naught. Okay, because both the left limit and the right limit will exist in that case. Okay, and I can ask one more question: is it always necessary that h need not be differentiable when f of x naught is equal to g of x naught? We have seen that we can generate examples where h is not differentiable at x naught when f of x naught is equal to g of x naught. Can you say that if f of x naught is equal to g of x naught, h is not differentiable? No, you can't say that. You can give simple counter example. If both f and g are equal, you have only one function. h is equal to will be f of x, and since f is differentiable at x naught, you have h is differentiable at x naught. Okay, so in that it depends. But when f of x naught is not equal to g of x naught, you can tell 100% assurity that h will be differentiable at x naught. Okay, so that's it. Thank you everyone.